Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
Well, John, we're off to a great start this morning. I just knocked my soda over into the equipment, so we'll see how long it takes before things catch on fire until the smoke starts coming out. We'll just keep going like nothing happened. How's that? Let's try. Hold on. I got a major problem. Okay, I'm going to have to reroute you. Okay, do you hear me? Are you? Give me a little talk there.
I hear great, and if you can reroute me, that's like a Cameron freestyle on Funk Flex, Brad.
Okay, I had to put you on a different pot. Okay, you were saying, but nobody was hearing what you were saying. Say it again.
I was saying that, what was the movie? Was that Airplane, Brad, in which somebody spills a soda onto a control, like the airline control, and they say, no, but it's 7-Up. It's the Uncola.
Well,
I think it's one of the mini Airplane movies, I believe.
See, with my engineering background, diet soda spilled into equipment is not that big a deal. Sugared soda is a huge, soda or coffee is a big deal. I'll tell you a quick little story. Years ago, I used to run an uplink. I used to have 2 satellite uplinks. Yes, I was in the satellite uplink business. And one of the things we did was we uplinked the Stephen D.C. show when they went national. I got a contract.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Right, and I uplinked that. So one morning, I'm driving to Jefferson City, and I'm listening to Stephen D.C. on one of the stations in Jefferson City. And once again, I'm the guy that's put that signal up on the satellite so the station in Jefferson City can play it. And all of a sudden, the audio started to get funky, and it got weird, and all of a sudden, there's this huge buzz. And I'm going, oh, crap, something happened to my uplink. So I get down to Jefferson City, and I start making phone calls. And the interesting thing is they're not calling me like for example, like the uplink's down or something like that. I'm going, okay, this is weird. There's no audio here. And then the local guy comes on, and I can't remember what Jeff City station was, or Columbia. Hey, we're having a problem with the Stephen D.C. show. We're going to take it back local for a while. I'm going like, okay, once again, I've not heard from anybody. So on the way back from Jefferson City, I called my old buddy, Sam Caputa, and I said, hey, Sam, I was in Jefferson City this morning, and I heard the show go off the air. Is that anything to do with me? He goes, no, Steve dropped a cup of coffee in the console, and it burnt up. And they were in Westport at the time, where KTRS is. And I was near there. I go, can I come by and take a look? Literally, the coffee went into the board, the big console, the knobs and the meters on it, and caught fire.
Wow.
It was smoke in the studio and the whole bit. And they had to literally strip the equipment out and this is, TMI, put a new backplane into the system, new motherboard, and it was just crazy.
What kind of effect do Little Debbie crumbs have on controllers, Brad?
Little Debbie crumbs will typically increase our audience by 3.6% on a Tuesday.
Ooh, wow, that's a good bump. I mean, that's within the margin of error of most national polls.
Right. That is John Combest. You spell his name Combest. He's the guy that every single day for 22 plus years, and pretty soon 23, but he won't give me the exact date, puts on this amazing website where he puts all these incredible links, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, even 80 links in a day. But we start the show off with, we condense all that down to what John thinks are the top 3. We bring this guy into the studio.
I'm Casey Kasem.
He says interesting things like,
we're on our way to the number 1.
And things like,
and here they are.
And things like,
now on with the countdown.
And then he starts with,
in 3rd place,
a show that you listen to on your way into the studio in the morning, Brad, the Mark Cox Morning Show on 97.1 FM here in St. Louis, had John Lamping on yesterday. Was this during the period of time when you're driving, Brad? Did you get to hear John on there yesterday?
I did not hear John because, quite honestly, I was in very early to the studio because I'm having some issues with Westplex. Actually, not some issues. We're putting on some new programming in Westplex. So I was actually in the studio yesterday with Westplex at 5 o'clock, so I didn't listen to Mark Cox.
I see. Okay. Well, John Lamping was on. As many folks know, he's a former state senator from St. Louis County, and he now lives in Augusta. And he's very well connected to both the grassroots here and a lot of the decision makers in the state of Missouri and conservative activists. And Mark Cox has him on from time to time to talk about what's going on in Missouri politics. And John gave essentially the answer to something that we talked about yesterday, Brad, which was when the state of Missouri gets a whole new influx of money for something, whether it's sports betting or whether it's lottery or whether it's a casino, where exactly does that money go? Does it really go to education? And John cut to the chase yesterday. He was talking specifically about Amendment 5, which is the casino in mid-Missouri that's sponsored by Bally's. And John's point was, with all these initiatives, whether it's the lottery or anything else, a big bunch of money comes in and you say, hey, this is for schools, this is for education. And then lawmakers have found a way to take money that otherwise was previously appropriated for education and then go spend it on other stuff. So it's really not a net win for education, at least in the past with these initiatives. And it's just a giant shell game. So I thought it was unique that at the same time that we were talking about that, Brad, on the air yesterday, John, who's actually served in the legislature and has seen these budgets and seen where the money goes, confirmed what we talked about yesterday. So John walked through a few of the initiatives, and Mark asked him some questions about some of the other statewide issues. Apparently, Brad, Mark Cox has issued his voters guide for November, so I haven't seen it, but I know that Mark encourages folks to vote no on the casino. So he says it's not because he's against gambling, but because he doesn't believe in where the money's going to go or that there's too many special interests involved. So story number 3 is John Lamping on 97.1. You can find it up. I have some timestamps up on my website today.
When you say no on the casino, he's telling people down in the Lake of the Ozarks to vote no on the casino, or no on sports gambling, or no on both of them?
No on, I believe he said no on the casino in mid-Missouri. I don't know what Mark says on his voter's guide about sports betting.
Okay, interesting. Okay, and we'll circle back on that because, matter of fact, we have a guest, and we have a guest that's going to be on 720 who's going to talk about that specific thing. It's the lady I heard on Mark Reardon's show, I guess, on Monday afternoon, who I thought was very interesting. And by the way, let me say this up front, because a lot of times we have all your John Combest fanboys and fangirls listen to the first segment, A Block, and don't go past that. Matter of fact, the other morning we had a bunch of views, listens on the YouTube channel to the first block, and then the other ones where I talk most of the time. I think we had 1 and 2 views on those. So anyway, that shows you where I'm at.
That's an exaggeration, but okay.
Okay, but the idea being is, what I wanted to say is, I am open to all sides of the issue, and if you are pro sports betting, I'd be more than happy to have you on as well, too. My phone number is area code 314-280-8880. You can call me. You can text me. I will get you scheduled if you are a pro-gambling person, but more than happy to have you on the air. Okay, number 2, John.
Would you be willing to have Jack Cardetti on?
No, because he's your friend. I don't want to have any of your friends on. Because they'll all gang.
Oh, Brad, that's so funny.
They'll all gang up on me. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I don't need any help when it comes to beating up on Brad.
Okay, here we go.
Up a notch to number 2.
Boy, I tell you what, on Monday at 7:30 a.m. in Southwest Missouri, Scott Fawn will be on KWTO, Brad, and Scott has some information about a director in Missouri state government taking trips on the dime of state vendors, Brad. Now, I'm not an expert on state law, but I think that's either illegal or it's highly frowned upon. Scott mentioned this yesterday on his midweek update. He had State Representative Lou Riggs on from Hannibal, Marion, Rawls County, kind of that area up there. And they covered a gamut of issues, including DEI and the infestation of DEI in certain Missouri departments. They talked about these unregulated hemp products. They also talked about the fact that Lou Riggs is running for Cindy O'Loughlin's seat in the state Senate and what he might anticipate in a primary there. But the takeaway, Brad, I thought it was a really compelling teaser. Monday, Scott will be on KWTO, 7:30 in the morning, and he'll be talking a little bit about this woman allegedly taking trips and going to conferences paid for by a state vendor. So I don't think that's legal. But if it's legal, it's surely frowned upon.
Now, is she the official, and I know we've talked about this, but is she the official bona fide DEI person that was put into that position by the, was it
No. So we're talking about two different things here. You're thinking of the Marijuana Initiative, Brad, the
Right.
original Amendment 2 in 2022.
Right.
But what we're talking about is the Department of Insurance, and she's the director of the Department of Insurance.
Okay, have we ever figured out who the official designee of the DEI person is that was brought about by the marijuana amendment?
Well, we asked the expert on that, which would be Epen Thampy, and Epen didn't know. So either that position hasn't been filled, or it's, I don't know, maybe it's was it the masked comic? Who was on the Gong Show in your era, Brad?
It was the masked comic. No, who was the guy that did the dance? What was his name?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
The guy that came out
Not
and did,
Mr. Bojangles. Who was, we're gonna have to Google that.
We're talking about Chuck Barris, and the interesting thing about, most people have no idea who Chuck Barris is, but Chuck Barris was this interesting guy who was a very famous television producer, had all sorts of different game shows and things like that. And I think the thing was the Gong Show. I think he was sort of goaded into that. Wasn't that like a joke? Wasn't that the story behind it? That it was like a joke?
I don't remember. The person we're thinking of, though, is Gene the Dancing Machine.
Gene the Dancer. There you go. Boy, that's going to the Wayback Machine. Okay.
So Gene the Dancing Machine, either him or the masked comic is the lead of Missouri DEI, which would probably be more competent than Clora Lindley Myers. And when you talk about DEI, Brad, it's hard to not talk about DEI and think about some of the other associated things like, I don't know, reparations and story number 1.
Wow. There's a hint.
The number one.
Finally, Brad, we get a little bit of resolution on reparations. And if you've seen these headlines, have you seen the headlines?
Yes. I mean, I see them all the time. Matter of fact, believe it or not, I was looking at the stlpr.org website this morning, and they have another story on that about that. Would you imagine they would have that on there? Can you believe that's on STL?
Yeah, I can't imagine that. So instead of getting cute about the headline, Brad, I'll just say what we really should talk about. On May 30th, you and I got on the air, and we talked about the fact that the Reparations Commission came out and said they wouldn't be able to meet their deadline. They needed more time and money, Brad. And I said to you, Brad, do you care to make a wager on whether if they kick the can down the road to September, if they'll be able to make their new deadline with a little bit more money, of course. Now, we didn't end up finalizing that wager. We did not consummate it, Brad. I did not carry you over the betting threshold and make an official wager. But I said, you know what? I think if the Reparations Commission says they have a new deadline, I think we should take the over. Well, I hate to say I told you so, Brad, but you and I told you so. And the reparations panel met, and guess what, Brad? They came to the conclusion that they need to give people money, but they don't know how much, and they don't know what it's going to look like. So all they need is a new committee, Brad. So the chair, which is Tishaura Jones' confidant, named Kayla Reed. I would suggest you check out pictures because she looks exactly as you might expect her to look. Kayla Reed says, what we have decided as a commission is to set forth a cash payment process that is equation-based, but that equation isn't formalized. So Miss Reed wants a brand new committee, Brad, that's going to take a little time and need some resources to actually figure out what that math equation is going to look like. So I'm just going to get to the kicker, Brad. At the end of this Post-Dispatch story, which is brought to us by Austin Hugelet, who I don't know how he was able to write the story with a straight face, honestly. Kayla Reed points out that the mayor, the comptroller, half of the city's aldermen are up for re-election. And Miss Reed says, decision makers have to answer your questions to earn your vote. So in other words, let's delay this a little while, right? Who expects us to make deadlines and keep a budget? Let's delay this a little longer. And then in the spring, you ask those candidates if they feel reparations or not.
You know, this is all very frustrating to me. And can I tell you something? There are people around the country, there are cities around the country that are really doing some interesting things. And I have some firsthand knowledge, and I've been there many times. Matter of fact, I was in the old federal building in Oklahoma City before that. The crazy nutbags blew it up and killed all those people. But Oklahoma City, we could learn a bunch of lessons from Oklahoma City. The mayor of Oklahoma City is, I'm telling you, I think he would make an ideal presidential candidate. And if you look at what's going on in a city like Oklahoma City, they don't have all this crazy crap going on. They don't have any of this weird stuff that's going on in the city of St. Louis. And if you've been to Oklahoma City, people make fun of Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and I've been to Tulsa and Oklahoma City many times, as well as Des Moines and Omaha. All these places that are in the area that people go, oh, Des Moines, oh, Omaha. Let me tell you, the city of St. Louis could learn a lot from Springfield, Missouri, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, it just drives me nuts.
Where I disagree with you, Brad, is that none of those cities that you mentioned, none of those cities are going through a renaissance.
They don't need to, because
St. Louis is going through a renaissance, Brad. Haven't you listened? Haven't you read the news?
They don't need to go through a renaissance because they're moving forward. Maybe they went through their renaissance 20 or 30, 40 years ago. They got their direction straight. They're moving down the road. They're doing things right. It's a great place to live. I know. It's like my complaint about about the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. Okay, once again, which side of the Missouri River do most people want to live on? Now you live on the St. Louis County side of the river. You may say,
I would say Sauget. That's the side of the river I want to live on, Brad. Can we give a teaser to B Block, Brad? Because we only have like a minute and a half left.
Yes. What's the questions you want to ask?
If folks are listening to this on YouTube, you can go to episode 209. You can go to B Block, and you can hear today is October the 2nd when Brad asked questions of Brooke Foster. Brad, here's what I would ask somebody who opposes this amendment. Brooke Foster was on Mark Reardon's show, and she says that the group is not opposed to sports betting at all. It's just they're opposed to this measure. What is it about this measure that's different than what should be on the ballot? In other words, if not this, then what, Brad? And secondly, if voters reject sports betting in November, should we trust the Missouri legislature to pass sports betting? Sports betting has come up at least for the last 4 years, and the legislature has failed to deliver. Should we really expect the legislature to take any substantial, substantive action on this? So wait a minute, Ms. Foster. You don't oppose sports betting, but we should just let the Missouri legislature handle this? Do you really expect that to happen next year, Brad?
No.
These are the questions I would ask Brooke Foster.
I'll answer that question right now. You know why it's not going to happen if it doesn't pass as a constitutional amendment?
Does it have to do with Bill Eigel?
No, it's because of all the nutbag Republicans who once again get in control. They have a supermajority, and they can't agree on where to eat lunch. You know what I mean? I mean, once again, they can't agree on anything.
So, that's the point, Brad. If the legislature couldn't pass it in 3 or 4 years of debate, what do you say to the woman or man who enjoys sports betting, who says, well, I just want sports betting? You can't wait for the legislature to pass this.
No,
See if Ms. Foster has an answer to that question.
You know what I tell that person to do? Just get in your car, drive to Illinois, make your bets, and then come back.
Why not?
Simple as that, right? All you have to do, geolocate, they know you're over there, and you move on down the road.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?